Simon Shinerock, you've got 15 estate and letting agency branches. What's your opinion on the ending of Section 21 and what it means to the lettings industry? Talk to me.
Well, I think it's potentially disastrous, and this is for practical, down-to-earth reasons. Let me give you an example of a couple of them. In a no-fault eviction, you could be a nightmare tenant, but I don't have to prove that to be the case. So the courts aren't really going to be burdened by that issue. It's already been proven that the vast majority of landlords are in it for the long run. They don't get rid of tenants unless they have to.
Because hardly any Section 21s actually get given out in the industry.
Well, the point is, it gives me as a landlord the peace of mind to know, and actually we do use Section 21s. We always have to issue them if we want a tenant to go.
True. At
the end of a fixed term anyway. But what I'm saying is that we don't. This whole idea of that you're getting rid of tenants in a sort of I can't remember what the phrase that they make, but you're victimising the tenant and kind of throwing them out on the street for no reason. It's a bit of a laughable idea. Okay. Landlords want to keep good tenants, but the second problem is this: that in an ideal world, you would never throw a tenant out merely for bringing to a landlord's attention the fact that the property needs some maintenance. That's obviously wrong.
But they're protected with that.
They are a bit protected with that now, but in the past they were. But nevertheless, you would, in an ideal world, but we don't live in an ideal world. So you have to always look at things in terms of what are the benefits and what are the consequences, of making a change of this nature. So one of the problems that I see is it knocks on to rent control. Why is that? Well, because at the end of a tenancy, if I can't give you a Section 21 and get the property back and get what I consider to be a better tenant in place, but I want you to go anyway because you've basically made my life a nightmare and everyone's life a nightmare, but not enough to go to court. Well, it would take so long to go to court and it cost me so much to go to court. I'd rather forgo that and actually get rid of you, get a new tenant in. But the problem I've got, if there's no Section 21 anymore, you've got assured tenancies for everybody. I could, if there's no control placed upon me as a landlord, just ramp your rent to the sky. Now, clearly that's not fair. So what you have to then say, well, I've no longer got Section 21. Now I'm going to limit landlords. I'm going to be limited on how much I can increase my rent. So that brings in my view, the potential for rent control by the back door. And then what we know happens is this: once you bring in rent control, it doesn't matter what they say, it can be limited to inflation, it can be subject to some form of tribunal. Effectively, it will act as a drag on the market. So rents won't go up as high as they would have done otherwise.
Yeah, but in the last 8 to 9 years, rents have not even in London caught up with retail price index.
No, but once you actually impose some form of...
Because I've done some research, and in other countries where there has been rent controls, landlords have automatically put up the rent. So
if the mechanism exists to do it. But the problem is, again, if you get that mechanism, so for example in Germany, where it's a very structured and regulated type marketplace, where you've got mainly institutional landlords, they're very well aware of the framework, they're not individuals, they don't have these individual relationships with landlord and tenant in the way that we have in our market. And sure, you can create those kinds of things, like build to let, for example. There are some aspects of that.
Do you think that this is part of a host of suites? We're talking about Section 24 with the tax changes, obviously the changes with regard to the way the MIRAS is sorted out, tax relief, everything. Is this just one thing to try and get rid of the private landlord?
So this is quite a big subject. I've spoken on this subject. I got very worked up about this subject at the early days, but I haven't really done much lately on it because kind of what will be will be. But clearly it's wrong to tax somebody on a loss. Clearly it's wrong to set up a differentiation between me as a company, and I can get tax relief on my expenses, my mortgage interest, for example, and you as an individual, and say you can't. These are indefensible changes. What is it motivated by? Well, a lot of people think that the regulator would much rather have a smaller number of bigger landlords and a large number of small landlords, and that it's easier to impose standards on that basis. Other people think that connected to that is the need for building programs and build to let, and that in order to make it a sweeter deal for the build to let large institutions to come into the market, they've got to weaken the competition, and that is the private landlord. And what does that actually result in? Well, my conclusion is it results in the building of thousands upon thousands of substandard rabbit hutches in which, you know, large parts of the population are sort of sentenced to live for an indefinite period, and where the rents themselves will be actually astronomical compared to what they ought to be. My experience of most private landlords is they're pretty generous people, especially the little ones.
They never put the rents up.
They never put their rents up, they get attached to their tenants, and actually it's never a financial, it's never, they never maximise the potential of their financial investment. But when you look at professional landlords, all of that is flipped on its head. Yeah? What they want to do is they want to extract every last penny, which means building small properties, having the highest possible rents. And what they'll do is they'll cosmetically dress that up with, oh, we've got a gym on, you know, we've got a cafe, and then 6 years later that will be in disrepair and not used anymore. And 6 years later, half that building will be full of DSS, and you know, and those are things that are so predictable now.
So really, it's politics.
Yeah, I mean, the politics that we used to know has changed.
Well, let's talk about in the next video about how politics and the property market don't mix.
They don't.